All right, guys. You guys really liked the Mythic Plus tier ranking video that I did. There's a lot of hot takes in that video, a lot of feedback. I'm always glad to hear back from the community, and here's y'all's takeaway. The thing is that everyone's experience with Mythic Plus is completely different. So you could have had one bad key with a dungeon, and it completely changed your whole entire ranking of that one key. So I did try to put as many variables as I could into the video to try to get like the best consensus. But even my own guild, like I told them my rankings and they were like, "What? Like, why did you even put like Necrotic Wake or Siege that in that spot? XYZ." So, but I love that. I love really good discourse when it comes to the World of Warcraft community. So, really did appreciate all of y'all's comments and look forward to this one. This one's going to be a really quick video too. It's just on the raid. I did want to do another Mythic Plus one, but I think I'm going to kind of like weave it in and out. I don't want to do like drown out the noise with just all Mythic Plus. But I guess background for me for raiding. I've been raiding as long as Wrath of the Lich King. Been playing WoW since vanilla, but I was 10 when it came out, so I was just doing quest and whatever I could as a 10-year-old. But yeah, I have a lot extensive knowledge when it comes to raid mechanics of just like how does a raid feel. So it's going to go into my mindset of ranking. How did the raid feel as a whole? How was the aesthetic? How were the tank involvement mechanics? How was the healing involvement? The DPS involvement? Group cohesion? Was it one of those raids where you needed a guild to completely clear the raid itself, like past a certain point or whatever it may be, or is it pretty pug friendly? I'm not going to take LFR into account whatsoever because we can all agree that LFR is just one, it's a joke, and two, it's absolute chaos. So, but yeah, I have a little bit less categories too. I have easy peasy, which just means that like this boss is just a tank and spank type boss. Not really much thought goes into it, and any group can really down it. Have perfect. It's weird because perfect technically is a little bit higher than easy peasy. Perfect just means like altogether there's enough challenges and enough involvement, and the fight feels like when you kill the boss, it gives you that dopamine of like I am happy that I killed this boss finally. And the category just means that it could need improvement. It's okay where it's at, but there are a few things that are just kind of obnoxious if not done correctly or whatever the case may be. And then garbage is just the absolute bottom of the barrel. Like why this is just awful through and through. Now, my guild and I we have AOTC on farm. We're looking to dabble into mythic raiding. I'm not a mythic raider by any means. I won't claim that whatsoever. I am more a Mythic Plus player. But as I've gotten older, it's become more of just a generalized appreciation of the game, AOTC, KSM, KSH, and then if I feel like it, to try to go as far as I can for IO. But I just love World of Warcraft. I have since 2004, and I always will. So let's get right into it. So I guess the first one we'll get into, let me see, is Ulgrax. Now, Ulgrax honestly isn't that terribly difficult. I from what we've prepped for Mythic raiding, there have been a couple rumors about there being a lot of like portals and movement ability based players that are needed for this fight. Because I don't know too much about Mythic raiding, I'm only gonna rank it on heroic and below. If the rankings are different from the Mythic rating, just let me know in the comments and I'll be like, okay, yeah, like that's good to know. Like, it definitely will help me too, because I'm about to get into Mythic rating. Right now we're battling the roster boss. So, if you want a Mythic rating guild, shout out your boy Spellbound on Illidan. I am on there almost all the time, streaming every night too. except for Sundays, my YouTube days. Yeah, so Ulgrax isn't that terribly difficult. You know, it starts out, I think, from a tanking metric, you usually just keep him in the middle. He's got technically 2 phases. I mean, I guess kind of 3 if you want to break away the second one a little bit. But the first phase is just a simple tank and spank where, you know, there'll be like a group soak, and you soak it, drags everyone to them, range get into the spider webs, just because you can stay still and just run through your rotation freely. Really not that difficult of a boss in its entirety. You know, obviously being the first raid boss of the tier, I'm gonna have to place him at easy peasy. If there's a group that I'm doing, I mean, normal is extremely easy all the way through, but for heroic, if I'm at a group for heroic they can't down Ulgrax, that's a problem. Yeah, because I mean, like, even the second phase, you're leaving ads, and then you're feeding them food, and then you're just running that all over again. So not that terribly difficult of a boss in its entirety, I would say. And then let's see, next we have the Bloodbound Horror. So for Bloodbound, it's not that hard. It's more so of a tanking fight. I mean, it is a DPS check too, per se, but the biggest thing is it's a tanking fight, because for heroic at least you have to position the boss for when he sends group 1 down. Group 2 tank has to position the boss so that the waves that shoot out of his arms. Let me see if I can find spewing hemorrhage, however you say that word. You have to time that correctly, and it can get a little spicy, and it is to an extent a DPS check, because if you don't down the ads when you're sent down under, then he gets like a shield and group wide damage goes out, and it's absolute chaos. So for Bloodbound Horror, let's see, I'm you know, and there is that one thing where they send everyone out. My only thing is for melee it feels really good. For range, it's kind of abysmal because of the tentacles that get placed on you and you're constantly having to move. I don't know. I think, let me see here what I have on my notes for him. Yeah, I'll put him in the category. Like, it could be better. I think, like, overall it's not a terrible fight, right? Like, out of 10 I probably give it like a 6, just because like it's not like it's not a fun fight. But it's not a terribly difficult fight either. So I guess that's probably where it would fall for my ranking, at least. Then you have Sikran, which Sikran is same thing with Ulgrax. If you have a heroic group that can't down Sikran, that's going to be a problem in itself. The biggest thing with Sikran is that there's like 4 people that will get targeted. They got to break away, and he'll put clones of those people there. You got to break them, and it's just like a moving pattern and cohesion. Not necessarily pug friendly, but even definitely on normal, but even on heroic, you can kind of cheese through it a bit. So I'm just gonna go ahead and skip to it and put this one up at easy peasy. I mean, this is an easy, just tank and spank. The tank mechanic is actually pretty cool too. You have to do like 2 of the, I think it's expunge, and then you tank swap after that. So it kind of keeps the tanks on their toes. I like that. I'm not really, you know, because I tank main for my guild, and then I play a warlock for my other guild, and I really pay attention to the fights where if I'm tanking, I don't just go on autopilot and just kind of let it run its course. Those fights are boring. If I could, I play Peggle while I'm doing that. I really do appreciate the fights that have you rotate tank swaps and communicate, which I'll get into that later on another boss that like it's just chef's kiss from tanking. Next one we have is Rasha'nan. This is another one, same thing with Ulgrax. If I can't get this boss down in a heroic group, that's a problem. Gonna skip to it and just put him at easy peasy. The thing about Rasha'nan is, you already seen the fight in Dawnbreaker, so you know a majority of his mechanics. If your mobility lacking, it is a little problematic, but I mean the fight as a whole feels really smooth. It's really easy for a pug group to understand what they need to do, especially if they've done any keys, because the biggest thing is going to be the waves to clear out the webs. The only added mechanic I think is when you have to do a group soak and he drags you in briefly for a second and if there's not enough people. And the only problem with that is if enough of the raid group is dead by that point, and then he just yeets everyone off the side. I will say if I was ranking this boss like week 1 of War Within, it'd be a different ranking because he was extremely buggy. The whole raid as a whole was extremely buggy, but this was one of the ones where he just didn't die. He was just floating, like stuck in his transition if we killed him while he was flying to another position. But now, yeah, he's easy boss. Very, very easy. Next we have 2 options. So we'll go with Ky'veza, Princess Ky'veza. This boss in itself, another easy peasy. But actually, I'm gonna put this boss at perfect because this boss has the right amount of challenge. It's definitely easy, but it can be challenging if the group doesn't understand the mechanics or positioning. So if you do get all of that down, once you down this boss, especially on heroic, it feels extremely rewarding. I mean, the only drawback I have to this boss is that when it's down, you have to run back to the treasure chest and not loot the body, and that's a minor thing. I love the Princess Ky'veza fight, even from a range DPS standpoint. Like when you get into the pie slice phase, you just draw back and rotate the quadrants, which is something that I learned from THD Warlock, watching him and Race the World First. But I mean, the biggest thing with Princess Ky'veza is that the sending the clones after the rifts, you send them through the party, and it hits anyone. They also get orbs that break off from them, and the orbs do raid-wide damage, and as well as the people that have that dot do damage as well. Very damage-intensive fight. I also love that Ky'veza has that little perk where if you fall 10% or lower on health, she will immediately execute you. And I just, I love the little things like that. And the tanking side of things is really involving. I love being able to save my group where I can look around and get an idea of where the rifts already are going to be. And if there's misplaced rifts, I can position her where I know it's going to help save the group and create this like vortex pull center based off all the rifts that are around. So even from a tanking perspective, it's really involving, really engaging. Cannot say enough good things about this fight. I thoroughly enjoy it. So now the next we get into is going to be Broodtwister. I don't know. I mean, I got a lot of pushback on Siege ranking last week. But this week, we'll see. Broodtwister, I'm going to put in the garbage ranking. It's just absolutely abysmal. And I've heard nothing but horror stories from my Mythic CE friends about the long nights of raiding that they've had with this boss. So I can only imagine, because it's been a pain for us on heroic for my other guild. It's been, the learning curve has been very steep. It's nice from a range DPS perspective because, especially if you're a good cleave class, my parses have been exceptionally good because of that. For tanking, it sucks. I cannot stand it tanking. There's a misplaced egg and it's a big tanky spider. I know I'm in for a world of pain. Having to aggro all these things coming at you and then also trying to save your taunt for the taunt swap is just way too much. I mean, you really have to be a good tank class that has enough aggro producing abilities to be able to control the group around you. I've had it happen to where I haven't snapped aggro on something fast enough and it's one shot like our top DPS or something like that, and that already puts us in a bind. I like the quadrants, how it gives freedom to the group to decide which quadrant they want to push first. I just hate that parasites exist. The parasites are just extremely annoying if you don't control them properly. If you control them properly, you might get that that like initial hope that, oh, maybe we should push the parasite quadrant first. The other thing is the worm quadrant, like what I'm talking about, right? Like there's one quadrant that predominantly has the tanky spiders, and the tanky spiders are going to do damage to your tanks, and how much damage they do that's not healed produces raid-wide damage to the group. And then you have the worms. The worms basically can't move, and they're casting this raid-wide damage, and it has to be interrupted. And there's just not enough interrupts to go around for the worm quadrant. It all around sucks. The plus side to it though is that the health to these ads have been heavily nerfed to where you don't necessarily need to worry about them that much. And I guess that's good, but also, it still doesn't take away from the fact that there needs to be group cohesion, communication, healing cooldowns, communications, and stuff like that. Like towards the end is when healers are running out of mana, and it's just absolute chaos on who can last the longest. How I would improve this boss, I mean, I would say have the quadrants be less predominantly of one set mob. Still have there's one or two more of XYZ type thing, but it doesn't have to be as excessive as it is now. I mean, you could not even change it as is now either. Like it's not that bad of a raid fight. It's just I hate doing it. Like it sucks being DPS. It sucks tanking. So like I just in my head I'm like I'm not mentally prepared for this. I don't want to do it. The next is going to be Silken Court. Silken Court, I'm going to go ahead and put it as perfect. It's a perfectly challenging fight. It was annoying when you had to clear. You had to have two webbed partners. Well, I guess 4 total, but like 2 lines to stop. Is it Ansurek? Yeah, Ansurek. And it wasn't that bad. Not in its entirety. It honestly is just a mechanic fight. You get the mechanics down, the boss is going to die eventually. Any boss has an enrage timer, of course, but like if you get the mechanics down, it's going to go down naturally. So and tanking wise, this is like the chef's kiss fight. It's perfect because it helps me bond with my tank in that fight, because I'm having to communicate. Okay, I have Ansurek. He just did I forget what is that move called that it's like projecting spinner, I think is what it was. Reckless Charge is the one where he charges, and the 2 lines. But Piercing Strike, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, so as soon as he does the Piercing Strike, I'm communicating to my tank. Because Blizzard's been fiddling with private weak auras and all this other stuff, a lot of the add-ons that notify tanks of when a taunt swap, it works most of the time, but there's some times that it doesn't, and in this fight, it's kind of finicky. I think it's gotten better, but it honestly wasn't that bad to begin with, and it was really nice to like not rely so heavily on someone telling you taunt swap. Instead, you had to watch for the cast and be like, okay, hey, Piercing Strike just went out. I'll take the Silk Binder, Skyne Spinner to Gaj. Like, what do they do with these names? So sucks. But yeah, you would just rotate like that, and it was a good healing intensive fight because you have the Stinging Swarm that everyone had to go in the center, mass dispel, and so all together was a great fight. It almost felt like a dance, really. I do miss the dance in Castle Nathria, but maybe we'll get another one day. And then last but certainly not least, we have Queen Ansurek. Now this is, I don't even know what, 2 or 3 months into the season. I can't even, I've lost track already, but it's been heavily nerfed. And when it first went live, we all know it was a rather insane boss, but we're not talking about Mythic Queen Ansurek. We're talking about Heroic, and we're talking about current day today. And honestly, I would put it at at perfect. Might even put it at easy, but I haven't pugged Queen Ansurek. I've only done it with guilds. So, you know, we already had that cohesion. I would have to pug Queen Ansurek to see how it feels for easy peasy. But Queen Ansurek has a multi-facet mechanic list of just abilities that she throws. But when you understand what to do for each thing, and you just do the dance every single time. I mean, our guild ran this boss over 150 times before we downed it. And, you know, it didn't feel daunting. You know, it felt great. We were having a fun time. And definitely probably one of the more challenging bosses that we've had in a long time. And I think they're saying like it was one of the most, like on release, it was one of the most challenging and end tier bosses in a hot minute. I think the last time anything was on that scale, I think, was Razagath. But yeah, this is my final ranking for the current raid tier list. As you can see, majority is fairly easy. I mean, it's usually how it goes. There's always one or two that are kind of like, you know, the challenging wall for any group to kind of overcome. And like my current guild has this on farm for heroic, and then my other guild that I raid with, I think we rotate being stuck on Brood and being stuck on Ky'veza. Like we'll down Ky'veza 1 week and down Brood, or not down Brood, and then or we'll down Brood 1 week and struggle on Ky'veza. But that's still, even with that being said, you know, that this is still like my end tier rankings. I don't think this was necessarily one of my favorite raids by far. I enjoyed raiding in Wrath. I was too young for Burning Crusade and Classic. I just wasn't well equipped with knowledge to understand how to prog the game, but I wish I had, because Burning Crusade raids were phenomenal, and so was Classic. There was Classic mode and Burning Crusade mode, I know that, but yeah, I mean, like, maybe I'll do like a tier list of the best raids of all time, because I mean, at the top of my head, Castle Nathria was amazing. Because, you know, the biggest thing that I think Blizzard overlooks too for these raids is like the aesthetic. The aesthetic of this raid just felt like an underwrought type feel. Like it's just, there's Nerubians, there's spiders everywhere. I think the only thing that was truly elegant and cool to look at was Queen Ansurek's chambers. It was pretty cool to see everything that was surrounding all the platforms and stuff. Broodtwister is kind of cool too. If you look, it has a consistent running wall of spiders along it. But other than that, like, it just wasn't something that I would take home with, you know. Overall, I give it probably like a 7 out of 10, probably. Yeah, 7 out of 10 is a good score. But yeah, if you feel differently about my rankings, or if your guild or group has struggled on one boss that I haven't, or you haven't struggled on a boss that my group has, if you think that there shouldn't even be a garbage category, like, let me know. Like, I'm always open for debates. Even if you get like really passionate about it, you know, if you start like throwing name calling and stuff in that, like, you know, obviously I got to like draw the line there, because, you know, at the end of the day, I want to create a positive community for World of Warcraft. I think there still is one, and you just got to look to find it. And I want to help people find that community. So yeah, let me know. I'm always down for a debate, and thanks for watching this video. See y'all next week.